Hey, Shalom. So I decided I'm just gonna make this. I might make this 3 parts, but I'm definitely gonna make it at least a 2-part video. People just keep calling my phone, so telemarketers keep calling my phone and cutting this thing off. So, anywho, last thing I said talking about urban foresters. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that they'll do. Urban foresters, arborists, they're very close. A lot of time, if you're an arborist working for a company like Davy or Bartlett, you're really one of the procurement guys that's going out and you're getting all the tree jobs, stuff like that. So you can make a lot of money doing that. You can make a lot of money doing that, or if you're on I think it's consignment. I think that's the word for it, something like that. If you're only making it based on how many trees jobs that you're getting, you might make only a little bit, but for the most part, people make a lot of money because they're usually doing salary or wage for that job. Um, so that's pretty much it for that. Kind of jumping back a little bit to the Forest Service aspect. Wildland firefighting, right? Now, as I mentioned, a lot of forest rangers out there, they do also do wildland firefighting. When I went to the ranger school, what ended up happening is that I ended up receiving my wildland firefighting certification, and they have prescribed fire and stuff like that. So I had my S130, my S190, and my L180. If you don't know what that is, go ahead and look it up. And if you want to actually get into a firefighting position, a wildland firefighting position, forest firefighting position, a lot of times you want your red card, and that consists of those courses, and you'll have to do a backpacking test for whoever those people may be, whatever agency you decide that you want to get with. Usually that's like if I remember right, it's 2 miles with I could be wrong, but if I remember what it was when they said if I wanted to do it, it would be like a 2 mile fast walk, basically 2 mile hike, fast walk only. You can't run, and you got to have like a 30-pound ruck. It's like 30 or 50. It's 30 or 50-pound rucksack on your back, and you got to complete it. I believe you had to complete it within like 20 minutes or something like that. But it does vary with each agency. Anywho, so that's that. If you want to be a wildland firefighter, that's you could just be that all on your own. There's plenty of state governments, and there's plenty of national opportunities to be a wildland firefighter, even going so far as to be a smoke jumper, right? If you're a smoke jumper, you're one of those guys that literally you'll jump out of a plane, pop the parachute, and you'll go right next to where the forest fire is at, and you'll try to fight it, right there. Uh, you could be a chainsaw guy. You could have a Pulaski. You could have a forest fire rake. Any one of those tools are tools that a forest firefighter can use. A lot of them, if you do decide to do that, it's a huge bonus. If you got a CDL, at least a CDL Class B. If you got a Class B, that's great, because a lot of times they need people to drive those fire engines. Right off the bat, usually $14 an hour. $14 an hour if you're like all the way down entry level, sometimes up to 16. Um, Now, when it comes to forest positions, right? Here's some advice if you're trying to get into some kind of forest service position like wildland firefighting. You want to be a forest ranger. You want to be ENCON, like a environmental conservation officer, or a game warden, stuff like that. First thing you do check your state, go on your whatever your .gov, Pennsylvania would be pa.gov. Check out your state website, go to whatever environmental section that you got is for the government, and then just start looking up job opportunities in there. And you'll be able to see what it is they want as prerequisites, and sometimes they'll actually tell you what the pay is and stuff like that, when the openings will be. Usually these are openings that you're only going to see seasonally. Sometimes you won't see an opening for like a whole year, sometimes 2 years. Some states, like New York State, you actually got to take the test, but they only give the test out for forest rangers once every few years. Nowadays, I guess they're pumping them out. They're having a lot more people take those tests, and they're trying to fill positions and open up positions. It's all that is really based on the state budget. So that is that. If you want to decide to do that, like I said, go ahead first, check out what state it is that you're a resident in. And then if you want to do something more nationally, what you want to do is you want to go to usajobs.gov. usajobs.gov. If you go there, you're going to want to look at, you could then look at the Park Service. You're really looking at the USDA is really what you're looking at. You're looking at the USDA, you're looking at the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, to see what kind of positions, careers they got in there. And then, of course, if you got your education, there's all kinds of things you could do. You could be part of fisheries. You could actually work for a hatchery for salmon or something like that. You could actually be a wildlife biologist. You could decide that instead what you want to do is you want to collect natural resource data, which is a whole nother field, which is kind of like forestry, but what you're really doing is you're going out and you're figuring out what kind of habitats are out there, and you're really consulting landowners on what kind of habitat they got and what they could do to improve maybe a endangered species habitat. What kind of conditions that are going on with that. There's that. You can also go on to, I believe it's forestjobs.com. Forestjobs.com. If you go there, you can find forestry positions there. Indeed.com actually does have quite a few positions that I've seen over time dealing with forestry, but it deals more with utilities, which I'm not sure if I haven't mentioned that yet. So utilities is if you really deal with power lines and stuff like that. What happens is that you could be a consulting utility forester, which is what I am, and you actually will look for trees that are falling into power lines or need to be trimmed away from the power lines. You'll work for, you can end up working for Asplund or Davy, or you could end up working for even the power company themselves. If you do that, the pay for the most part starting out is pretty high. Generally it's around the $18 mark. Generally it's around the $18 mark when you start a job like that, which is fantastic. The only are people that really make that kind of money really starting off the bat are people that are doing the actual cutting for the trees that are near the utility lines, and they're climbers. If you're a climber and you're doing something like that, $18 an hour is basically what you'll be doing. That deals more with the tree service aspect. There's that. And trying to think of anything else real quick. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it. That's why I could think off the top of my head for anything dealing with the forest, anything dealing with the Forest Service. There's that. I started moving back into I started moving over in the tree business. Now, tree business, if you are if you want to do a tree service, that is basically going out and cutting down trees that are on people's properties that are homeowners. You know, you basically got a big old tree in somebody's yard and they need it pieced down. Why? Because there's a whole bunch of houses, there's the street, there's lamp posts, just all kinds of stuff like that. So tree service people, you're talking about Davy, you're talking about Bartlett, you're talking about Wolf Tree, you're talking about those kind of businesses. There's definitely money to be made in those businesses, and a lot of times people, they just do their own private businesses. I have my own private business. I call it straight cut contracting. That's why I call my business. So, you know, I on occasion what I'll do is I'll do part-time jobs doing that. Now, if I want to go full bore into it, that's different, because then you're dealing with a lot of equipment. You got to get a bucket truck. You got to get a chipper. You want somebody with you that actually knows how to climb. And I know someone that knows how to climb, and I do work with him. And you'll end up getting your own insurance. You know, you'll end up getting your own insurance and stuff like that in case something breaks. You know, you want to be able to cover that in case somebody gets hurt. God forbid, you know, in case somebody gets hurt, you want them to get covered. Okay. Now, dealing with that, if you are the owner of that tree service, sky's the limit. There's a lot of people out there that make $100,000 a year, you know, doing tree service. They got all the equipment that they need, and they're pretty well rounded to the point where they could go cut down the tree, piece it all up, throw in the chipper. They got a dump site that they could bring it to, and they could take the wood and piece the wood up and turn it into firewood, and then they'll turn around and they'll actually, during the wintertime, they'll sell the firewood. So a lot of people out there that sell firewood are actually either they're loggers or they're tree service people for that purpose. That they got that wood all stacked up from all the jobs that they did, and people don't want to keep the wood. A lot of landowners, a lot of homeowners, they don't want the wood. So you usually gotta take care of that job. Now, if you work for a tree service, and that's usually what you want to do. You want to work for a tree service before you go and you try to just start doing your own tree service. If you work for one and you're a ground man, you're not up in the tree, you're not up in the lift, usually you will start out $14 an hour. Sometimes a little bit more depending on your experience. If you are a climber, you could throw on the harness, you could safely get up in the tree, safely piece the tree down. Because I'll tell you what, if you don't know what you're doing, you could really have some horror stories happen. But if you legit know how to do that, $18 an hour is usually what you'll do starting right off the bat. You could be like a foreman of the crew and you know how to climb the tree, or you know how to get into the bucket and get up in the lift and actually piece the tree up that way. And a lot of times you'll get special training doing that. You could join the ISA, the International Society of Arboriculture, and you can actually, learn how